here I am, taking another route to go to Fresco y Mas. Sure, I could drive there, but it's a nice day. The temperature is in the low 60s. Awesome. So it's probably day 12 or 13 on our 14-day good weather cycle, which means this may be the last time. Maybe tomorrow's the last time, I don't know. But the hot, humid weather is going to be here, and then it will not break. Then all we have to do is for the rainy season to start. Anyway, I want to take some time out to share with you an experience. My most popular video ever was when I shared the experience of helping an older friend of mine to transition to the keto diet and eventually the carnivore diet. Well, as time has gone on, I've tried to help other people to transition, but most people don't want to. I mean, think about it. Changing your life is difficult, and they're not going to do it unless they have no choice. So, I want to share an experience of a friend who is, let's just say, the opposite of my other friend. He was never unhealthy. In fact, when I first met him, he was a very healthy 19-year-old into bodybuilding and fitness modeling and doing quite well, studying engineering, has a high IQ, doing quite well, and basically successful. Somebody that I would look to as an example. Exceedingly good looking, probably the most attractive human being on earth, and a good friend to this day, even though I haven't seen him in person since probably 2003 or 2004. We still talk from time to time, and we're still friends, and that's great. Now, where did it start? It all started, well, let's go back. When I was a college student at Miami-Dade College, I started Miami-Dade in 1986. I was on a scholarship, but the scholarship was running out. The scholarship was only good for a couple of years or 70 credits. And while I had started to take the electronics technology course, the program, I decided that maybe I would try to be eligible and get a 4-year degree at the university. But in order to do that, I would need to get a scholarship there, which wasn't as easy. So when I finished my AS degree, that would have been the end of my scholarship and my college career. But by asking the advisor, which was a friend of mine, as well as a couple of professors, what could I do? The one professor I had was so impressed with me as a student, he decided that if for some reason I couldn't get a scholarship or afford to go to university, he would pay for it. So that was quite a generous offer. But he had brought up a suggestion that I had never realized. If I was working as a student assistant, then I would qualify for financial aid. Because of my family's very low income, it would be a grant. It would not be a loan, because I've always been strictly against borrowing money in terms of personal loan of any kind. I have no trouble getting investors to pay for my business, but personal loan is a no-no, one of my core beliefs. So anyway, I was able to listen to his advice. He took me to the secretary, and they arranged for me to be a tutor. Now, tutor is basically a student assistant, but unlike a regular student assistant, the tutor actually prioritizes instructing other students, and then when there was no student to tutor, he would be used as student assistant. That would typically involve taking messages between departments, because we didn't have any kind of electronic messaging at the time. We used interoffice mail, which were these envelopes where you put material in and then carry it to the department. We even had a mechanical stamp where they would, when the mail came in, we'd stamp it so we knew when it was received. And of course, making copies. There was no email. So our secretary, her name was Dorothy, she used to type this up on a daisy wheel typewriter, IBM, and then we would take that, copy it on the copy machine, and send out the interoffice memo. There was voicemail electronic on the phone, but a lot of the professors didn't check the phone messages, and it really wasn't official. So a lot of times we had to use the interoffice mail. So as student assistant, that was one of our jobs. Now, over time, because I had that job as student assistant, I did qualify for an additional scholarship where I was able to continue my studies. And as part of that, you had to work as student assistant. Now, I could have worked at the university, but they didn't need me. So they made a special arrangement where I could continue to work at Miami-Dade College. And I did. In fact, I worked there even after I finished my studies, which was in 1992. Now, at the time of 92, they were doing some remodeling in our building, moving some of the offices around, making some changes. And then that summer, Hurricane Andrew hit in August of 1992. When that storm hit, they moved our department to the second floor of the building. And what happened was this. The department chairman, who had been there since I can remember, his name was John Pistorino. He was very much in demand because he's a structural engineer, and after Hurricane Andrew, they used him a lot as a consultant. So even though he was technically the chairman of our department, he was almost never there, and his position was pretty much ceremonial. So what they ended up doing, they ended up taking some of one of the professors, who was a friend of mine, to act as the chairman. Well, when it came time to pick student assistants, now you have to remember, I was there after Andrew, the college was closed. But then, following year it opened. We didn't really start anything until 93. Now, I was not working there. Right after Andrew, I got involved in a volunteer group. We were covering homes, we were picking up debris, which turned into getting hired and getting involved in a company that did debris removal, temporary repairs, and so on. So, 1992 was the year when I was eating nothing but meat, just basically beef, water, the so-called lion diet that people talk about now, trying to see how long I could go before I had a health breakdown, and I didn't have a health breakdown. So anyway, that job continued throughout 1993. Now, once the work started to run out, I was looking for additional work. Now, I had earned a degree in electrical engineering, and it was like, why in the world am I working physical labor when I could use my degree? So I thought, what would be the best thing to do? Well, we go back to the college and see if I could get any references. Well, when I went there, they told me, well, we might need you to substitute classes, and the tutoring job, we haven't been able to find anyone good since you left. So why don't you take that job back? I also had an additional part-time job with a company that used to do electrical work and install traffic signals and so on. So what I ended up doing, I took on some work part-time at the college, did the other work part-time, and then I was able to just sort of keep going, Well, that year in 93, when the term started in August, or whenever it was, we had found our department without a student assistant. There were 3 people that were applying for the student assistant position. One of them was, your typical Cuban guy with the Cuban guy attitude, whatever. We had one like that before when I worked there. they're okay, just a little difficult to deal with. We had another one that was what I would call an island person. Could have been from the Bahamas, Jamaica, Haiti, I don't remember where. I think it was Bahamas. Usually Haiti and Trinidad, they tend to be more humble, but some of them are not. The same thing with the other islands. And the Bahamas, they tend to be sort of better than everybody else, or at least they feel that way. So I was like, And the third guy was this blonde-haired, friendly, very good looking. And I'm thinking, that doesn't look like an engineering student, because engineering students were usually Asian or African descent or whatever. But yeah, he's an engineering student. And I was like, wow. His goal was to go to Miami-Dade, and then when he had the credits he needed, he could then go to University of Miami. Now, obviously, University of Miami was expensive even back then, but his goal was to get some type of financial assistance or scholarship, which he eventually did. And, it was kind of interesting because once I got to meet him, I was sort of put in charge of trying to find the student assistant, which I thought was nice. And that's one thing I've noticed wherever I worked. A lot of times, whoever was employing me, they would give me additional work that was outside of my general scope. But yeah, so of course, when I had a choice between 3 candidates, you can guess which one I chose. So I chose him, and once he started to work there, I became very much a friend of his, which is kind of unusual because I don't really remember having friends where I worked and the other jobs that I've had, which were usually pretty short term. But anyway, we became friends. And the more I got to know him, the more I realized that he was quite knowledgeable and he was interested in a lot of things. So he had a very good interest in engineering. And since I was tutoring electronics, I showed him all the things that I knew about electrical theory and basic physics and a little bit of chemistry, just the stuff that I had learned on my own. And it was quite nice. So, and when you work that job, it's sort of feast or famine. You may get a lot of work all at once, and then other times it just kind of dries up and there's nothing to do. So you'll sit around waiting for a phone call or waiting for the secretary or one of the professors to call you to send a message or deliver something or whatever it was. And that's pretty much how it started. Now that was summer, it was actually fall term, 1993. Now what does that have to do with the longest term carnivore that I know? Well, I'm going to go into Fresco y Mas. I'm going to get some heart attack chicken, check the markdown meat, see what I can get. I mean, even go back and see if I can get some fat or some other dumpster material, which is difficult to do, but once in a while, you get it. But anyway, I just wanted to introduce you to what's going on here so you get an idea of what's coming next. All right, so I'll go ahead, I'll lock my bicycle up, and I will turn this off, and we'll talk a little bit later.